Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about my first long distance trip on my Indian Challenger. Now, I've always wanted to go on a long distance trip on a motorcycle, but between family, work, life, and other responsibilities, I just could never make the justification to go on one, mostly because it would leave Tiny Tater to pick up all the slack herself and take care of Yoshi. So I never really planned on doing one until September of 2022. Now, my company was sponsoring a big event in Las Vegas, and rather than fly down, I thought, hey, this would be a great opportunity for me to finally go on a long distance motorcycle trip, especially since I had just got the Challenger a few weeks or maybe a month prior to going to this event. So I had about a month to get the bike ready and to get 500 miles to break it in and get everything ready to go. So I had a little bit of time to prep. And so I did a lot of research, how to do long distance riding, what to pack, what to wear, what to anticipate. And so I was really excited to go on this trip. The trip would take about 500 miles each way, which I know is not excruciatingly long, especially for those of you who have done iron butt challenges, 1,000 miles in a day. But this was the first time I had gone on a longer distance trip. The most I had gone before was about 250 miles on my Scout, and those are always great days, but I would be tired and my butt would be hurting at the end of that. So I was really looking forward to seeing how would I hold up on a 500-mile trip. And this would take me through mountains and really long straight stretches of roads. And because Las Vegas was going through a heat wave, I would also be riding through 110 degree weather. So this was a lot of new territory for me, but I was really excited to embark on my first long distance motorcycle road trip and really break in the Challenger, right? This is why I got the Challenger, was to really go and was to really be able to go touring on more longer distance trips. So as I mentioned, the Challenger was still pretty close to stock. So I really prioritized getting two upgrades, the first of which was a Corbin touring seat, and the second was a pair of handlebars, so that way my shoulders and my back, I wouldn't be leaning as much over because I'm pretty tall. So I was able to install the handlebars myself, and it was the first time I've ever installed handlebars on a bagger, so that was a bit of a different experience, but great learning experience. So I was able to get that done, and I was able to, just to be able to squeeze in 500 miles, I was getting the break-in service done on Friday. So I only had a couple of days to spare. I packed up everything the day before, tied it down, double-checked, triple-checked that I still had everything. Packed up coconut water, I packed up snacks, I got a cooling shirt that I would wear, and then I'd have my jacket on top of that. I got my gear, make sure my cardio was charged up, make sure I had my route planned. I had plenty of water, and so I was good to go. As I was planning, my goal was to make as few stops as possible because of the heat wave in Vegas. So I wanted to get there as early as possible and minimize the amount of time I'd be riding in that heat. So I plan on leaving at 4 a.m. and did not plan to make any stops except for gas. I didn't stop for breakfast, didn't stop to sightsee, didn't stop to even take cool pictures. I kept riding through the day. So after leaving at 4 a.m. in the absolute pitch dark, passing I don't know how many Amazon trucks, I was struck by really the first realization of what touring means on a motorcycle, and I was reminded of being on a motorcycle, and it really gives you this connection back to nature and being outside, and how it's so different from being in a car or any other mode of travel or even hiking. It's a different experience. As the sun was coming up, that's where I was like, wow, this is just a beautiful, gorgeous sunrise, and it really just kind of set a good tone for the ride. It set a good tone for the trip. I'm like, this is awesome. This is amazing. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy I'm doing this. I'm so thrilled that I chose to challenge myself and to go out and do this. And it's just one of those experiences that I always look back on, even though it's been a few months since then. It's been one of those things I think about constantly. Before that, about 20 minutes into the ride, I actually started to get an error code on my dash, and I was thinking, oh great, I just got the bike serviced. I'm going on this huge trip. What could possibly be going wrong? So I was able to check the diagnostics, and it didn't seem like it was anything too critical. It just said, hey, get to your nearest Indian dealer as soon as possible, but, ride carefully. And so I was like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to assume it's going to be something that will resolve itself and it'll go away. It's probably just a bad sensor. And that turned out to be true. So after I got my first gas fill up, turned off the bike, filled it up with gas, reset the bike. And once I turned it back on, yeah, the error code went away. It did come back intermittently every now and then throughout the trip, but that was the only time it came up. So after that, I just wrote it off as just being a bad sensor or bad signal, and so everything else was fine after that. Now, riding on, moving on a little bit farther down, so now by 10 a.m., it was already climbing to be over 100 degrees. So I had the frozen water bottles I had packed, and the coconut water really helped. The snacks came in handy to keep me hydrated and to keep that energy level up throughout the trip. I really wanted to make sure I was riding safe, didn't get distracted with just those long stretches of road. You can really just zone out. And especially in that heat, and I'm still wearing my thick leather black jacket. And another big part of that was just keeping myself entertained some way, just to not to let my mind wander too much. So I had my playlist planned, and so for some of it I was playing through my Cardo, but then I figured I should be probably preserving the battery in my Cardo, and so then I just started blasting my music on the speakers, and yeah, I was definitely vibing to some of that music and dancing away. And so you got to keep yourself entertained in some way, shape, or form on those long rides. Later on, it really wasn't until like the 7th hour when I was really starting to feel some of the fatigue. My butt was starting to feel sore and just feeling tired. I mean, 7 hours of riding, that's quite a long time before you start feeling fatigued. So the Corbin seat and the handlebars made all the difference in the world. And even then, the pain I was feeling was very manageable. And I hadn't even taken any pain meds or anything like that. So everything was really going astonishingly well. And I was just really thinking, I'm so glad I put on those handlebars before I left, because I was on the fence of, should I put them on, should I not put them on? Because what if I try to put them on and I mess something up and I gotta put the other ones on and I'm just gonna get stressed out? Or if I mess something up, is this gonna jeopardize me taking the Challenger and then I have to try and take the Scout on a long distance ride? So I'm really glad I did decide to go through with it and give it a shot, and I think it really did pay off in dividends throughout that ride, because I going on the stock bars on the Challenger with how big I am, I don't think would have turned out that well. So I was able to make it to Vegas in about 8 hours, and I met up with my brother, so I left the bike over at his place. So I stayed with him for a night before I went over to the hotel, and then 5 days later, after we finished the conference, and being in Vegas, you're gonna spend a lot of time out at night, drinking, socializing, connecting with colleagues, and it was a fantastic time. And yeah, after that 5th day, it was time for me to go home. However, the night before I was supposed to go home, the company threw a massive celebration, kind of like a going away bonanza, at one of the nightclubs. And so, we were partying, having a great time. And, I saw it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, okay, well, do I just pull an all-nighter and keep this going, or do I try to go and sleep, be one of the first people to go home and go to sleep to try and catch a couple of hours before I got to get up? I decided to be, okay, at least a couple of hours is going to be a good thing. It's not going to be responsible to just pull an all-nighter after partying and drinking and all that stuff. So I decided to head back at 1. I got a couple hours of sleep, and then I got up, showered, packed everything up, checked out, and set out again at 4 a.m. Again, it was the same strategy coming here as well as going home. And to minimize the amount of time being in the heat, because it was still very warm up in Northern California, so I was still going to hit hot temperatures. So the same strategy applied, and I figured that having a high morale and creating great memories with my colleagues would be a good trade-off for getting less sleep, and I do think it was worth it. So I wouldn't make that decision again, but that was me. Having that high morale definitely carried me through the ride home. So the ride home was a lot more of the same. Again, a beautiful sunrise, especially in the desert. Plenty of time to reflect, take in the world, be with my thoughts, vibe to good music, and 8 hours later, I was pulling home into my driveway. So all in all, I had an absolutely wonderful time on my first long distance road trip. A little over 1,000 miles all in all, and it was fantastic. You know, plan ahead and really kind of know your routes and be prepped, have everything plugged in, have, you know, cables plugged in, electricity, charge everything you need to do. And if I get an opportunity to go on another long distance ride, I would happily do it time and time and time again. It was such a great time. Even going by myself, you know, it was such a great opportunity. I'm really happy I challenged myself and I followed through with it. And, you know, it's one of the things that my colleagues keep bringing up every time. Like, what, you rode to Vegas? I'm like, yeah, I did. And it's so awesome. And so, you know, it's really just a standout experience. So I encourage all of you, if you're thinking about going on a long distance trip, I say go for it. You know, this is a great way for you to find out who you are as a person, who you are as a rider, and it really truly is a wonderful experience. And it really is kind of the whole embrace the journey, not just being in a rush to the destination. So even on those long stretches of road, while it wasn't fun, that part may not have been fun or the most entertaining, you know, it's still an experience. It's a part of the journey. And that's really going to be what shapes you as a rider. All in all, everybody, hope you enjoyed this video. Do like, share, subscribe, help out the channel. Comment down below, have you gone on a long distance ride before? Tell me, where did you go? How did you do it? How long was the trip? What was your experience? I'd love to share those stories with you and learn from you, all of you as well, and see what your experiences are. All right, everybody, be well, be brave, do good, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.